The autumn rain drummed against the windows of Marcus Chen's penthouse office as he signed the final contract of the day. 40 years of building his pharmaceutical empire had left him with everything money could buy, yet the hollow ache in his chest never subsided. 3 years had passed since the accident, but grief remained his constant companion. His assistant knocked softly. "Mr. Chen, your car is ready." Marcus nodded, gathering his coat. Every Thursday afternoon, without fail, he made the journey to Riverside Memorial Gardens. It was the one appointment he never missed, never rescheduled. The cemetery sprawled across rolling hills on the city's eastern edge. Marcus's driver knew the route by heart, parking near the cherry tree that marked the path to his son's resting place. Daniel Chen had been only 28 when a drunk driver took him away, a promising architect with his whole future ahead of him. As Marcus approached the familiar granite headstone, he froze. A young woman knelt before Daniel's grave, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. Beside her stood a small girl, perhaps 4 years old, placing wildflowers on the ground with careful, reverent hands. Marcus's jaw tightened. This was his private sanctuary, his sacred space. Who was this stranger invading his grief? "Excuse me," he said sharply, his voice cutting through the drizzle. "What are you doing here?" The woman looked up, startled. She was African American, probably in her late 20s, with exhaustion etched into her delicate features. Her clothes were worn but clean, her jacket inadequate for the cold. I'm sorry," she stammered, wiping her eyes quickly. "I didn't mean to. This is my son's grave," Marcus interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. "I don't know who you are, but you need to leave." The little girl pressed closer to her mother, frightened by the harsh stranger. The woman rose unsteadily, gathering the child into her arms. "Please, Mr. Chen, I just wanted to, you know my name." Marcus's suspicion flared. "What is this? Some kind of scheme? Did you read about my family in the papers and think you'd come here with some sob story?" Hurt flashed across the woman's face. "No, sir, I would never. I've seen your type before," Marcus continued, his grief hardening into anger. "People who prey on the grieving, looking for money. Well, you won't find an easy mark here. Leave now, or I'll call security." The woman's eyes brimmed with fresh tears, but she lifted her chin with quiet dignity. "I'm sorry for disturbing you, Mr. Chen. We'll go." As she turned away, the little girl looked back over her mother's shoulder, her wide brown eyes filled with innocent confusion. Something about that gaze pierced Marcus's armor, but he pushed the feeling aside. He was protecting his son's memory. That's what fathers did. The following Thursday, Marcus returned to find fresh flowers on Daniel's grave. Simple daisies, the kind you could buy at any grocery store. His first instinct was irritation. She'd come back despite his warning, but as weeks passed and the flowers appeared faithfully each time, his anger began to shift into curiosity. The woman never came when he was there. She was avoiding him, respecting his wishes, yet she continued her visits. One evening, Marcus found himself unable to sleep. He paced his empty penthouse, Daniel's childhood photos staring at him from every surface. His son had been kind, generous, always championing the underdog. What would Daniel think of how his father had treated that woman? The question gnawed at him. The next Thursday, Marcus arrived at the cemetery early. He positioned himself behind a large oak tree and waited. 20 minutes later, a battered sedan pulled up, and the woman emerged with her daughter. From his hiding spot, Marcus watched them approach Daniel's grave. The woman knelt, speaking softly to the headstone as if having a conversation with an old friend. The little girl, bundled in a too-thin coat, hummed a sweet, tuneless melody while arranging her wildflowers with intense concentration. "I brought Maya to see you again," the woman said softly, her voice carrying on the wind. "She loves picking flowers. Says they make the angels happy." She paused, her voice breaking. "I miss you so much, Danny. Not a day goes by that I don't think about everything you did for us." Danny. The nickname made Marcus's breath catch. Only Daniel's closest friends had called him that. "I'm trying so hard to be strong," the woman continued. "To give Maya the life you would have wanted her to have. But it's so hard without you. You were the only one who believed in me when everyone else." She trailed off, wiping her eyes. The little girl, Maya, tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mama, don't be sad. Uncle Danny's watching from heaven, remember? He's keeping us safe." Uncle Danny, the revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. He gripped the tree trunk for support as understanding crashed over him. This wasn't a stranger exploiting his grief. This was someone who had known his son, someone Daniel had clearly cared about deeply, and Marcus had driven her away with accusations and cruelty. The woman rose, holding Maya's hand. "Come on, sweetheart. We need to get you to daycare before Mama's shift starts." As they walked toward their car, Marcus noticed the woman's pronounced limp, the way she favored her left leg. He noticed Maya's shoes, worn thin at the soles. He noticed everything he'd been too consumed by his own pain to see before. that evening, Marcus did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He went to Daniel's apartment, the one he'd kept exactly as his son had left it. Unable to sort through the belongings. He searched through boxes, drawers, closets. Finally, in a desk drawer, he found a folder of photographs. His hands trembled as he flipped through images of Daniel at a community center, teaching architecture to underprivileged youth. In several photos, the young woman from the cemetery appeared, smiling, healthy, clearly pregnant. Tucked behind the photos was a letter in Daniel's handwriting, dated 2 weeks before his death. Dad, I know we haven't been seeing eye to eye lately, but I need to tell you about something important. I've been mentoring a young woman named Jasmine Brooks at the community center. She's been through hell, abusive relationship, homelessness, lost everything. But she's brilliant, Dad. She got accepted to college on a full scholarship before everything fell apart. She's pregnant and alone, and she's terrified. I've been helping her get back on her feet, finding her safe housing, connecting her with resources. I know you'll probably say I'm being naive, but she reminds me of why I wanted to become an architect in the first place. To build spaces where people can rebuild their lives. I'm going to make sure she and her baby are okay. It's the right thing to do. I hope someday you'll meet them and understand why this matters so much to me. I love you, even when we disagree, Daniel. Marcus's vision blurred as tears rolled down his cheeks, the first he'd allowed himself to shed since the funeral. His son had been trying to tell him about Jasmine, about his commitment to helping her. And then Daniel had died, leaving her alone with a baby and no one to turn to. No one except the memory of a kind young man, who had believed in her when no one else would. And when she come to honor that memory, Marcus had treated her like a criminal. It took Marcus 3 days to find her. His private investigator located Jasmine Brooks working the night shift at a 24-hour diner on the city's south side. She lived in a cramped studio apartment above a laundromat, barely making ends meet between her job and caring for Maya. The investigator's report also revealed that Jasmine walked with a limp from injuries sustained during her escape from her abusive ex-boyfriend 5 years ago. That Daniel had not only helped her through her pregnancy, but had set up a small trust fund for Maya's education, a trust fund that Marcus, as executor of Daniel's estate, had never known about, because his lawyer had missed it among the paperwork. Marcus's shame deepened with every detail. On Thursday morning, he arrived at the cemetery before dawn. He brought a folding chair and settled into wait, a large envelope clutched in his hands. When Jasmine's car appeared, he stood, his heart pounding. She saw him immediately and hesitated, her hand protectively on Maya's shoulder. Please, Marcus called out, his voice hoarse. Please, don't go. I need to apologize. Jasmine approached slowly, warily, like someone who'd learned not to trust easily. Maya peeked out from behind her mother's legs. Marcus knelt down, bringing himself to their eye level, something the proud billionaire had never done before. Miss Brooks, I am deeply, profoundly sorry for how I treated you. I had no right to speak to you that way, to make assumptions, to fail to see that you were grieving too. Jasmine's eyes widened in surprise. Mr. Chen, you don't have to. Yes, I do, he insisted. I found my son's letter. I know what he meant to you, what he did for you and Maya. And I know. His voice cracked. I know I failed him. He wanted me to meet you, to understand, and instead I drove you away when you needed support most. Tears streamed down Jasmine's face. He was the kindest person I ever met. When I had nowhere to go, when everyone else saw me as just another statistic, he saw me as a person. He believed I could still become who I was meant to be. That was my son, Marcus said, his own tears falling freely now. That was exactly who he was. And I've been so lost in my own grief that I couldn't see he'd left behind people who needed me to carry on his legacy of kindness. Maya tugged her mother's hand. Mama, is this Uncle Danny's daddy? Jasmine nodded, kneeling beside her daughter. Yes, baby. This is Mr. Chen. The little girl studied Marcus with those impossibly wise eyes. Then, with the fearless trust of childhood, she stepped forward and wrapped her small arms around his neck. Don't be sad anymore, she whispered. Uncle Danny wouldn't want you to be sad. Something broke open inside Marcus's chest, a dam of grief and guilt and loneliness that had been holding back everything human in him. He embraced the child gently, then reached out to Jasmine, who hesitantly took his hand. They stood together at Daniel's grave, 3 people connected by love for someone gone too soon. Tell me about him, Jasmine said softly. Tell me what he was like as a boy. And Marcus did. For the first time since his son's death, he spoke freely about Daniel, not just the grief, but the joy. The memories. The laughter. Jasmine shared her own stories, painting a picture of Daniel's adult life that Marcus had never fully known. As they talked, Maya played in the grass, picking flowers and singing to herself. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the cemetery. Miss Brooks, Jasmine, Marcus said finally, I know I can never make up for Daniel's loss. But I want to honor what he started. He set up a trust fund for Maya's education. I'd like to ensure it's properly funded and managed. And more than that, I'd like to help you finish your degree, if that's still something you want. Jasmine's hand flew to her mouth. Mr. Chen, I can't possibly, my son believed in you, Marcus said firmly. He saw your potential. And if I'd been half the father I should have been, I would have made sure you were taken care of after he died. Let me do this. Not as charity, but as what family does for each other. Family. Jasmine whispered. Marcus looked at Maya, who was now trying to tie together a crown of dandelions. My son cared for you both deeply. That makes you family. And I've been without family for too long. Over the following months, Marcus became a constant presence in their lives. He helped Jasmine enroll in evening classes at the university. He insisted on getting her car repaired properly. He bought Maya warm clothes and took her to her first symphony concert, delighting in her wonder, but more importantly, he listened. He learned about Jasmine's dreams of becoming a social worker to help other women escape abusive situations. He heard about Maya's fascination with space and stars. He discovered that Jasmine made Daniel's favorite chocolate chip cookies from a recipe he'd shared with her. He also learned about the support network Daniel had built, a community center full of young people whose lives he'd touched. Marcus began volunteering there, using his business connections to create internship programs and mentorship opportunities. He established the Daniel Chen Foundation, dedicated to supporting survivors of domestic violence and providing educational opportunities for single parents. Jasmine became the program director once she completed her degree, her lived experience making her invaluable in shaping the foundation's mission. One Thursday afternoon, 2 years after their first painful meeting, Marcus and Jasmine stood at Daniel's grave together. Maya, now 6, was in school, already reading above her grade level and announcing her intention to become an astronaut architect who would design buildings on Mars. I think he'd be proud, Jasmine said softly, placing fresh flowers on the headstone. Of all of us. Marcus nodded, no longer fighting the tears that came. I spent so long angry at the world for taking him. I couldn't see that he'd left behind so much good, so much love. You helped me find that again. We helped each other, Jasmine corrected gently. She linked her arm through his. You gave Maya and me a family. You gave us hope. That's what Daniel would have wanted. They stood in comfortable silence, two wounded souls who had found healing in unexpected places. That evening, Marcus hosted his monthly dinner with the community center youth, a tradition he'd started 6 months ago. His penthouse, once a mausoleum of grief, now rang with laughter and young voices. Jasmine brought Maya, who immediately dragged Grandpa Marcus to see her latest drawing. As he admired Maya's artwork, a family portrait that included him alongside her and her mother, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: peace. His son was gone. That truth would always carry weight. But Daniel's legacy lived on in the people he'd helped, in the kindness he'd modeled, in the bridges he'd built between different worlds, and in learning to see Jasmine not as an intruder on his grief, but as a gift his son had left behind. Marcus had discovered his own redemption. Uncle Danny is smiling from heaven, Maya announced with absolute certainty, pointing at her drawing. Because we're all together now. Marcus pulled the little girl into a hug, meeting Jasmine's eyes over her head. In them, he saw reflected gratitude, forgiveness, and the kind of deep familial love that transcends blood. Yes, sweetheart, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I think you're absolutely right. The greatest inheritance his son had left wasn't wealth or property. It was the lesson that love multiplies when shared, that families can be found in unexpected places, and that the path to healing often begins with opening our hearts to those we initially push away. And honoring his son's memory by embracing those Daniel had loved, Marcus had finally found his way home.